All right, so let's get into it. Let's first, I just got a text from Mumby asking if we're recording. Yes, thanks for checking in. So first things first, once again, my name is Vanessa Spence. I am the producer at Obsidian Theater, and I will be facilitating the panel. We also have the lovely Myekah Payne, who used to be our company dramaturg at Obsidian and is now just like living her best life at Tarragon Theater as the Associate Artistic Director. And then we also have Reece, who used to be our former producer and is now living his best life at Soul Pepper as their Associate Artistic Director. I want to thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank you so much for taking the time out to engage the Obsidian community in this way. I really appreciate it. Do you guys want to go in a little bit deeper on like who y'all are and what y'all do, or are we?
I mean, I kind of want to see Myekah's cat. I don't know. If, I don't know.
I mean, I could definitely share my kitten, of course.
I mean, because yes, if you're talking about living your best life at Tarragon, I've heard that this kitten has been hanging out at the Tarragon offices.
Oh,
this is actually pretty true. So this is Persephone. Sorry, she was asleep, and so she's like, "Why did you do this?" No, she's fine. She's been hopping around all day. Yeah, so she goes to the office with me pretty much every time I go to the office, and she lives under my desk.
That's awesome.
So she's pretty great.
I would be so worried about losing a cat in a theater. Like, there's just so many places a cat could go.
That's why there's doors. Like, I shut the door. We sometimes put a little note in the door that there's kitten in office. Be careful when opening door, because she also bolts. So she's not the most fun to chase lately, because she really is trying to find crevices and hide. So it's great.
Yeah,
I
would want to bring a cat to my office, but there's no, I don't know if you've seen this with our offices, but there's no like ceilings on the offices. So like I could close the door, then the cat could like hop on this and hop on that, and then boom, they're gone.
And she totally would. Like, she'd just be like, "I'm off. See you later."
Yeah.
She's doing it right now.
Well, so she's gonna do what she does.
My cat's lurking somewhere. Somewhere. You'll probably see him, or he'll bite me on my ankle, and yeah. So anyway, first things first, like, I love that we started with cats. It just makes me so happy. I enjoy cats. First things first, let's get into our first question. So, recommender grants for theater creators. What are those, and how do they work? Who wants to start?
I mean, I'll let Luke go.
Oh, that's so nice of you, Myekah. Yeah, so I mean, like, what it is the Ontario Arts Council has a pool of money, and they're like, you know what, we are governing a lot of these grants already. Let's spread the love a little bit here and allow these theater companies that exist in Ontario to recommend to us who we should give this money to. And that's why like the word recommender is there, because really what these theaters are doing is they're making a recommendation to the OAC that this person should get money. So it's not actually money that that company ever like sees or holds. It's from, like, you get a check from the OAC. That's how this works. Every company has to actually apply every year, reapply to the program to be a funder through the recommender granting program. And they get a certain amount that the council says, okay, like, you're allowed to give X amount of dollars in total. And there was a limit too on how much that one person can get. It previously was between $1,000 and $5,000 that you could apply for. And I believe this year it's between $1,000 and $3,000. They took it down just a little bit, I think, to spread the love a bit more. And you can get less than you asked for, but you can never get more than you ask for, which is always a fun thing, because sometimes we're in situations where we want to give more money, but we can't because they didn't ask for more. Those are kind of the basics. You apply through Nova, which is the online system through the OAC. You set up a profile there. unlike the Canada Council for the Arts, you don't have to be like approved as an artist in order to apply for these. So those of you who don't know, if you're applying for a Canada Council for the Arts grant, allow for some time because you have to make a profile, attach a resume and a body of work, and then they have to review it and decide that you are in fact a professional artist, which is very strange. For OAC, you just go onto Nova, you sign up, and then in the bottom left-hand corner of the Nova screen, it shows you all of the grants that are open. So you go to recommender grants for theater creators, and you click that, and it'll bring you to a page that basically has all of the theater companies listed for you. You choose the one that you want to apply for. It starts an application for that company. And it's funny, it's the same form for all of the different companies, the same 3 questions. And then you can provide a script sample or any other supplementary materials. Those are all the like, what did I miss, Myekah, in terms of like the like nitty gritty things?
You didn't really miss anything really. That was all of the nitty gritty things. I mean, one thing that you can do is when you go into the site, the tab you'll find, like where you'll find the tab, it's under funding opportunities. In that tab, there's the apply button, but there's also a details button. If you hit the apply button, that will show you all of the theaters you want to apply for, like you can apply for. If you hit the details button, that's the one that will tell you all of the actual details that you kind of need to know about the program itself. So what they fund, what they don't fund, who are priority groups, who's eligible, who's not eligible. So when you're kind of considering those rules, like, oh, can I even apply for this grant? Like, does this even make sense for me? It's really good to click on that. And they have pretty much all of the information you would need there. There's one thing that did change on there, which I don't know if it was always there or if I haven't read it correctly for a long time, but it's under this program does not fund. So they do actually have like a heading that says this program does not fund. So you can figure out, they list them.
Oh, that's good.
Which is really, really good. And before they used to say that they don't fund workshops, and I think that they've renegotiated that because now it's workshop costs. They say they do not fund workshop costs except when the intention of the workshop is creation only. So I think there's a little bit more wiggle room on that now.
Yeah, that can be
people
interpreted.
are wondering.
Yeah, so I guess that means that's a really good. That's some good insight because I didn't even catch that. Because it's mostly for like creation, so writing, really. Like I think it's a writer's grant, right? So to be able to kind of create theater in a multidisciplinary way, it's not just about you start a project with writing. No, you can start a project with probably dance. And what can that look like? So how can we support that? So that's awesome that there are more ways to be able to fund a project in development, whatever that means.
Yes.
But you guys were talking about all these lovely, awesome things. And I was putting up some lovely, awesome links. So we have a link to the OAC, how to apply. That was, I think, was created by Luke, which is like still pretty great.
Yes,
so, it's like a step-by-step how to apply. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. And then also to the recommender grants page on OAC is that second link. The list of recommenders is the second link. And the third one is the recommender grants for theater creators, everything that you need to know, which was the page that Myekah was talking about earlier. Next thing, oh girl, yes. Can I ask you to put your question in the chat box so that we can reference that for our Q&A? Is that wonderful? Thank you so much.
Thanks,
so next
Myekah.
question.
Also, hi.
Thank you. Hi, Myekah.
Yeah, you can say hi to the folks here.
Hey.
What's up, Samson? What's up, Mundi?
Hey, how you doing?
I know.
Hi.
Thanks
What's
for
up,
coming
Barbados?
out. I love it. Thanks for coming out. I guess now that we're talking about the different forms of creation, right? This thing of in development, what does that mean when we're talking about these recommender grants? We want to see a project in development. What do we define as in development?
I mean, I defined in development as it's not done. I mean, if you've hit your stamp of approval and you're like, I'm finished, then I don't think you're in development anymore. I think it really is for work that is still trying to find its way. You might have maybe completed the script, but it's only a first draft. You want to keep going. You want to be able to do multiple drafts. You want to be able to do different forms of creation process. You were talking about maybe the creation process comes out of dance. Maybe it comes out of something else outside of movement. It could be that they want to do some further research into something. So this might be a situation where they need funding to do extra research for the creation of something. So it really is something that is in development for the purposes of theater. So I should also say that it is for the purposes of stage and theater. It can't be used towards something that is in development towards a film piece or in development towards TV, a poetry piece. It has to be specifically geared towards theater itself. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it needs to be theatrical in nature.
Theatrical
I would say,
nature.
like whatever that means also.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Poetry, I think is theatrical, so it doesn't matter. But yes, theatrical in nature.
Poetry counts. If it's like not like a published book of like a published anthology of poems, but if it's like performance poetry that is theatrical, we've definitely got those applications before, and we've definitely funded those applications before too.
So is it something that we can put up on stage? Because I have a question here talking about digital theater. So is it something that, are we only going to be recommending applications that can go up on stage live, or do we want to do some digital? Is that also considered theatrical?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
In this new world that we live in, like, what is that, right?
I would actually... I would wonder if in that section you've identified, Myekah, that does not fund. Does it say anything about digital?
Doesn't say anything about digital form.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of those, that's a tricky situation that they haven't come up against except for this period of time that we happen to be in. Because it does say that it does not fund film, radio, or TV, which one would consider perhaps digital falling into that. However, because of the way we've been shifting to allow performance, that's a...
I would say,
go ahead,
Myekah.
I was gonna say I would suggest calling the OAC is one option. Another option is also just, I'll let you go, Luke, because calling the OAC I think is my main one.
Yeah, I think that's what I was gonna say too. Like, I think what you could, because ultimately the company makes a recommendation and then the OAC sends a check. They don't vet. They don't go through and vet everything, at least not to my knowledge. So I think the first level might be a question for that particular company, whether it's their dramaturg, their AD, their associate AD, whoever's running the program, to see what that company's interest is in that kind of work too. Because also, if there's an interest in that kind of work, interest in going that direction, then that could be an exciting opportunity for that company to recommend that for further funding. And then I would say if that company specifically is then unsure as well, then then it comes to the point to go to the OAC and say, hey, listen, we've got this question. I think for me, what the difference is between, like, I honestly think that there's a third thing. Like, I think there's film, I think there's theater, and I think there's whatever we want to call this third thing that is in the middle, because it has elements of film and it has elements of the live theater. And I don't think we've named it yet. And I don't think anybody, I mean, there's probably an article out there. So there's 8 million people in the world. Someone's probably named it and wrote a thing about it. 8 billion also, not 8 million. That's like not a lot of people. So I don't know how to answer your question at all. Other than
mostly I would just say, ask questions. So email the theaters that you are specifically interested in, but also perhaps giving OAC a call. They do have a toll-free number for Ontario. It's a 1-800 number. I can put it in the chat. I can do that.
Yeah, and if you're going to apply with like a digital theater piece, I would say, like, really stress what about that piece makes it theatrical in nature. Like, what makes it not a film? Like, is there a live element to it? Is there
Yeah.
what is it that, why isn't it a film? I guess that's the question, right? Like, and I've been seeing that now more in conversations when it comes to plays too. People like will read a script and they'll be like, oh, like, why isn't this a film? Like, it's written like film dialogue, or like they're making these presumptions about it. So in that same thought, why is it still theater and why is it not film?
Yeah, that's like actually a good question to even put perhaps as the reasoning why you're looking at doing it for theater. You know, like just to throw it out there.
Yeah. Samson, you know what? We're just gonna. Are you guys okay if we just open it up to folks?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Samson, if you have something to say, please. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm the one that asked about the digital theater aspect. Like, for example, like with my show 11/11, it was intended to be live, but because of COVID, it had to be digital. So it's still a theater piece, right? And I write plays. I don't write film. I write plays, but because we're in this specific time, what then? If the only option is then it would wind up eventually either way still having to be done like a live stream or whatever, right? So live stream theater is not really film, but it is kind of film because it's on camera, right? So that was kind of my, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess in that case then, Samson, if the intention is it for it to be live theater, then I think you're fine. Like there's only so much that we can control. Okay. And by so much, I mean, there's like barely anything we can control about the state of the world right now. So like if the intention is it's going to be like a live theatrical workshop and it ends up being a workshop over Zoom, or it ends up being something that's live streamed, like no one's going to come claw back that money because we're all going to be in that same spot, you know?
Right.
Okay. Right. Perfect. Yeah. Thanks.
Friend. I think the key word is live. Like the key word is live. Like it's going to happen in the moment, you know? So.
Yeah. And theatrical, live and theatrical. Just going off of what Mumbi had said. I don't know if you want to say it out loud, Mumbi, but I guess for the purposes of OTC, applying to Obsidian as a recommender, we focus on things that are more theatrical in nature. And then, you know, if we have to have some digital elements to it, then we would incorporate technology on top of the project that we're working on. So I'm not sure if the project can be specifically for film or for a live stream, but, you know, just being in the times that we're living in, we have to be able to pivot. And so, you know, we're not gonna say no if you have to do an online workshop. That's okay. It's what you got to do. It's what you got to do. What else? I was thinking, I like what we had talked about calling OAC and about calling Obsidian. So I was thinking about folks who had some accessibility needs. So, you know, folks who aren't able to do the application for whatever reason, or they need some help, anything like that. How can they come to us? What's the best way to kind of go about filling out that application with their accessibility needs, thinking about that in mind? Or if you've ever dealt with something like that. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Myekah.
Oh, well, what I was going to say was when it would come to the accessibility for the NOVA system, that would have to be kind of an OAC question answering, because it's their system that all of the grants are coming through, and therefore it's them who kind of control the accessibility towards it. And so I know that there is information within the resource tabs in the OAC granting system that does talk about accessibility. So I would recommend to kind of go through the site itself, at least for this situation specifically. I'm talking like for recommender grant specifically, you're going to want to look at the OAC, because that's we all are kind of we all have
at
to
the mercy of the NOVA.
Yeah, we're all at the mercy of the NOVA.
But yeah, no, like the OAC, like a lot of the granting bodies are really great with that. If you call the number or send an email and you express what those needs are, we all, especially in Ontario, we all fall under the AODA Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, which means that we are required to provide accommodations for those who need it. So really, it's whether that's a phone call or an email or whatever mode of communication is accessible to you, to reach out to the OAC, and they'll definitely have different versions of the form that they can definitely help folks through when it comes to not specifically the NOVA form, but actually just finding out more information about recommenders. And if it is that company specific, I'd say, again, just reach out to that organization. Like if they're on your website, maybe potentially, and they need to talk through how it's listed or how it's worded there, then having a phone call. I know folks aren't really at the office anymore, but maybe sending an email in advance and scheduling a phone call. I know that's something that when I was at the office and we were there, a lot of people would just pick up the phone and call and ask whatever questions they had or need to be talked through something. And I've walked people through NOVA too,
Yeah. I can't stress enough how important it is for everyone to know that we are here. There are actual human beings behind this jury of the recommender grants. So don't be afraid to call, even if it's just to ask a stupid question. We're here and we want to help out in any way that we can. When it comes to those serious accessibility needs, yes, we go to the OAC because once again, we're at the mercy of whatever they're able to offer us. And even talking with the OAC, they'll tell you that they don't even like their platform sometimes. But it's
there's somebody to find an arts council that likes their system. KAC doesn't like theirs. And the council just launched theirs.
Yeah, no one likes it. But hey, we have to use it. So how can we make sure that we know the most about it in order to put in our application properly?
If it helps at all, they do have an accessibility plan on the site. It is in Access and Equity tab. If you're there, go to Home, Access and Equity, and then there's an accessibility plan. They do say if there's any questions they forward you to the director of their human resources. So I can put the email address for the director of human resources for the OAC if anybody would like to ask them the accessibility question. I don't mind also adding that in the chat.
Thank you.
While we're here.
Pop it in the chat.
Thank you, Myekah.
Is the chat going to be archived along with the recording? Because this is going to have all the info.
I don't know. I think that I can archive it. So I'm going to figure out a way to do that before I leave. We did have another question in the chat from Alex. So Alex is asking, what type of voice are we looking for in the writer for the applications? It doesn't look like Alex has gone to theater school. So we don't have that theater schooly jargon in applications. Are we going to think any different of that? So what kind of voice, I guess, are we looking for? Or what voice stands out, I guess.
I'll start us off while Myekah puts the info in the chat there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it, Vanessa, when you're like, there's people here. You're talking to a person, not a robot, not a professor, not a TA. You're talking to a human being, one of which might be on this call right now. So talk to us like we're people. You can that's honestly in terms of what kind of voice, real and entertaining and passionate. When we're reading so many of these too, I mean, I want to say hate's a strong word, but I strongly dislike the academic jargon, especially if I know the person too, and this isn't how they speak. And I'm like, why are you talking to me like this? We were just talking to each other at that show, and then you were talking to me about this idea, and you sounded so excited about it, and now I'm reading it here, and it sounds like you're trying to make it something that it's not. Be honest, be open, show us your passion. You don't have to be anything that you're not in this application, because we're people. Yeah. You go ahead, Myekah.
Well,
I'm sorry,
I'm
I
just
do
gonna,
have to chime in first and say
yeah.
my apologies to Alex. Alex did go to theater school. I would just kind of, I just kind of assumed. So my apologies. Your turn, Myekah.
Well, I was just gonna say that even theater school aside, I think that sometimes when we look at writing grants, we feel like we have to use a very professional or official voice. And sometimes that ends up being a little colder than people anticipate, and it loses the passion that Luke is talking about, or the love for the project that we really want to feel in the words. So we know how much drive you have to tell that story, how much you really are trying to create this piece for the stage and for people to see, and why we should be helping you do the thing, you know? Why? So we just wanna know, and we wanna feel it when you're writing it. So it's always good to if you can speak in your own voice, if you know how to write in your own voice, to really hone that and move forward with that. I think that's what I would
I
say.
agree. Yeah. Honestly, just writing how you speak. I know with some grants that I write, I will do like a speech to text, and I'll say whatever I have to say. I'll answer the questions in my real voice, and then I'll go back and edit. So it's really just about saying what you have to say, making sure that, we feel the passion in those words. And the only way to do that, or one of the only ways to do that, is to just say it. Just say it. Don't try to over explain, just, there's only 3 questions in this grant.
3 questions. It's it.
So just answer the questions. Just answer the questions in like the best way you know how, we're not looking for anything crazy.
Yeah. And if you're ever in the moment where you're like, oh, like, I feel like I've said what I wanted to say, but it says 300 words and this is only 200. It's okay. It is okay. It is not a goal. It is not a finish line. It's really not.
Sometimes it's actually better that you say less, because the jury is reading, maybe over 100 grants. So, just kind of say it, let it land. And whether your application is the first that they read or the last, it'll stick.
I appreciate when it's to the point. Just to throw it out there, I appreciate when it's to the point, and I still feel like, this is what I'm doing and this is why, and I'm like, great, fantastic. You don't have to fill it with all of the things.
Liberate yourself, Alex.
Yes, please, you are liberated. You are liberated. So I guess when we're talking about just answering the questions in, a very passionate way, what makes the application stand out to you as a jury? What makes it like pop? What makes you remember a certain application?
I mean, for me, it is partially the voice that people write in, how they present what they want to create, how they discuss it. If they have a clear, for me, it's always like, do you have a clear why here, why now, and where you going kind of idea? So if it feels too vague, if it feels too broad, then I'm always kind of like, we might just be, might not be this time around. So I do need like, for me, it's like a few more, like, be a little bit specific if you can. If you know what you're doing and where you're going, then it's good to let me know so I have a better sense. Those usually stick in my mind. Yeah, I'm gonna let Luke answer, because I think otherwise I get like too detailed into.
I agree with what you're saying. I think like, show us that you put a little bit of thought into it. I think like it got to a point where this grant is so easy to write because it's just these 3 questions. Like sometimes like, you know what? Sometimes it'll stick out in a bad way before it sticks out in a good way. Like the laziness, we can read laziness. I'm not even kidding. There are times when somebody has forgot to like change the company name they're applying to. Like we've gotten applications to Obsidian Theater that have been like, and this is why I'm really excited to apply to Buddies and Bad Times Theater. I'm like, yo, that's like not even like, that's like multiple words in that theater's name. Like, it's not you went from like Obsidian to Factory, and you just, no, it's like Buddies in Bad Times. Like that's 4 words.
Yeah, they got to find a replace.
I'm like carelessness, laziness. What are you doing?
Read the mandate before you apply, just please. Like those are things. throw that one out there too.
And also, I like a self-aware application. I like an application that knows where it's at, knows, and like within the context of the world. I could I can't tell you how many times I've rolled my eyes at an application that says no one's done this before. Like I said, there's 8 billion people in the world. Someone's done it, or they've thought of it, or they've started. You know what I mean? Like did somebody actually then do the research to the people who came before them and like are understanding like the work that has been done when it comes to that kind of storytelling or that kind of art? And then how do you connect to that? How do you relate to that? And then what you're bringing to that, it's a fresh perspective more than anything, right? Like it's those kinds of things that you think that, oh, if I say this, it'll make it sound like really cool, really unique. I'm like, I'd rather you just be like aware about what has been done before you, really. And that to me stands out. So I'm like, this person knows what they're doing. This person's done their work.
That's awesome. Yeah, I totally agree. Yes, I'm gonna add there, Myekah.
Oh, I was just gonna agree with Luke and to say a sense of the here and now is really important. Understanding what's going on in the world in relation to your work also is really sometimes nice to hear as well. Just the sense of awareness.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I totally agree. So I guess now we're talking about the application and the project and how it is, in the ecology of whatever else is going on in the theater world and beyond. That can stir up some feelings of nervousness and self-doubt and all of those lovely things that everybody, goes through every single day. I can't tell you how many grants I've started and have not finished because I'm like, oh my God, my project sucks. So what are some tips that we can offer to folks to help them with their, I've coined it, grant write fright? What can we do to help these folks out?
The only way you know for sure you're not going to get the grant is if you don't apply. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing to lose in putting that application out there. Like if you don't apply, you don't get the grant. So if you apply, you might not get the grant, but you also might get the grant. And maybe you don't get the grant, but then you start to form a relationship with the company. Like my relationship with Obsidian Theater started in a big way from a failed theater recommenders grant. Like I applied, I didn't get it because I was applying for a production and I didn't realize that you couldn't apply for a production. And then Mel Haig was a dramaturg at the time, reached out and was like, what you want to do is really cool, but this isn't the way to do it. So why don't we have a chat? And then like Mel talked me through like how to make a proper budget and this, and then it ended with Obsidian writing a check to just support my show anyways, from Obsidian's money, not from the OAC recommenders grant, right? Like you actually never know where this is gonna lead to.
That's a lovely story. I'm keeping that one.
Yeah.
Myekah, yeah.
I was going to say, I don't have a story, but I agree with what Luke is saying, like wholeheartedly. Sometimes this just allows for the theater company to get to know you in a different sense, right? And so even if we don't end up funding, your project might have been close, or it might have been something we were really fascinated by. And as Luke was saying, it might not have been for the right thing. And in that case, if the possibility is for us to reach out, then we will. And so I think it's always good to do that. And also, even if we can't reach out, the more you apply, the more your name is known and the more we start to remember that person applying and remember that person. And so when we see their name come up for other opportunities, then we're like, oh, I've seen this person apply like a few times for different things and I've always been interested, but it's never really clicked properly. However, this might be the right opportunity for them at this time. So as Luke is saying, like, and as one of my lovely T's says, you miss 100. What is it? Like you miss all of 100% of the shots you don't take. I got it right. Aha. Okay. Sports reference.
Didn't Michael Scott say that?
I think so. Oh no, on my tea bag it says Wayne Gretzky.
Oh. I was gonna say Michael Jordan, but I believe Wayne Gretzky. I feel like everyone has said it
The
once.
Office. Did anybody here watch The Office?
Yes, of course.
Because Michael Scott, like, he quotes himself. Thanks, Alex. He quotes himself quoting Wayne Gretzky.
Oh my God, that's a great show. He was an idiot, a beautiful idiot.
Yeah. Also, Anika had a question earlier, or like you had your hand up, but then didn't write anything in the chat. So I don't know.
Yeah, because they end up got it. You guys answered it, so yeah, you guys killed it. Never mind.
Okay, I just wanted to check in.
I appreciate that. Oh, I feel so loved. Thank you.
You are loved. So I guess like what I got from your answers is, or what I would like to take away from it is, it's not about getting the grant when it comes to something like this. Or let's not make the goal about getting the grant. Let's make the goal about making a connection with that theater company. Yeah. So just thinking to make a connection rather than, you know, if I don't get the grant, oh no, life is over. No, if you don't get the grant, there are so many other avenues. Just, you know, try to continue to make that connection.
Yeah, especially because if companies don't do open submissions, this might be the only way you actually get your idea in front of their face. And they will read all the applications. So that's a big one.
Yeah. I wanted to get into like budget, because I know it's another point of contention for folks. There is no budget on this grant. There's no like budget question. But do we need like a sense of where that money is going? If you're asking for it, do we need a sense of where this money is going or not? Like, which one?
You want to start, Myekah?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is like a budget is not necessary, but having a sense of what you are planning to do with the money is good. It is good for us to have just even if it's a vague sense of why you're asking for the amount that you're asking for. This time I don't feel as strongly about this, only because the ask is smaller than it used to be, but because before it was like $1,000 to $5,000, it was kind of like, please let us know why $5,000. Because it's gone down, I don't know if I feel as strongly as I did before about that, but
yeah, it also has to do with the cost of living going up tremendously.
Yeah,
where like $5,000 10, 15 years ago went a lot further than it does now, or even than $3,000 does now. Because I think before, like back before Nova, when you had to, like, some companies would actually ask for a budget,
like a full budget.
But they were also very clear that this money is for you to write and to have time to do that. So some of my budgets were literally like, my rent cost this much. This is how much I spend on groceries a month. This is how much I spend on transit. And this is how much money I need to just be Luke Reece for a month. And then that's why I need this many dollars to have a month to write and not work, right? Like I think that specifically was is that a Why Not one, or was it a factory one, or maybe it was Native Earth? I don't know. There was like, they were like pretty open about like, this is for you to just take time off to write. So how much does it cost for you to do that? And I think, the cost of living has gone up right now. So
everything's up.
$3,000 when like most of that might be your rent here for a month. Like, I'm like, I don't even know.
Yeah,
they changed the game. They changed the game because before you were able to apply to 10, you know, and then you can get up to 3. But now you can only apply to 5 and you're asking for half the funds. So anyway.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Myekah.
And
go ahead.
Just to finish that thought.
I don't know.
No, I lost it. Go ahead.
Sorry. Sorry. I just gotta put it in.
All I was gonna add was sometimes lists help, even though like you don't have to like put any dollar amount, but you could just be like, during my creation time, you know, I just want, you know, I'm looking for funds to mostly just supplement my allowance to live while I write. Just having a sense of that helps, other than I'm just asking you for money. you know, with nothing else. So it's kind of just like just giving a sense, like a very vague sense of what the dollars are for, you know, like I want to be able to take the month off work to write. I don't want to have to do anything else. I just want to be able to create. I want to create with friends, and we want to be able to afford a space to create in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Without,
and then
yeah.
I would say, even if you don't send us a budget, if you're gonna propose something in this, maybe do a rough budget for yourself to make sure that it actually lines up. Because I think what has happened now that we're not asking for a budget is that some people will actually just say, I want to do all of these things, but I'm only asking for $2,000. And we're like, how do you accomplish that with $2,000? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
again, in the same way that sometimes the voice or what you're saying can stand out in a bad way, sometimes that can too. Like it'll give us a clue, like, oh, you actually didn't think this through, because what you want to do is very far off from what you've asked for in either too much or too little, right? And don't assume that we know you. Well, sometimes we do, but you don't know who might be reading these or who might be brought in to give some extra feedback, because I also think that sometimes there's assumptions that are made. Like, oh, like I actually have access to a dance studio, and I'm like, that's like I live in a dance studio, and that's what I mean when I say we're rehearsing in a dance studio. And then we like, how do you gonna afford a dance studio with this much money? You know what I mean? Like, give us all the context that we need to figure out what you want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I guess that kind of sums up all of my questions. I'm gonna open it up for the next 10 minutes, just for a convo, so we can put our cameras on if we feel comfortable. We can chat, we can say hi to Mumbi.
Hello. Thank you so much, Luke and Myekah. Fam, thanks, fam, for dropping in. It's
it feels so good.
It's nice. It feels good. It feels good.
It's so nice to see your face. It's such a lovely conversation to listen to. And thank you, Alex and Anika. Is it Anika or Anika?
Anika, no, you got it right.
Anika and Samson, thank you so much for coming in and being curious.
Yeah. Hey, Mumpy.
Hey, Samson. I haven't seen you. No, I did see you during the Playwrights Unit reading when you did that, but I haven't seen you since. So it's nice to hear your voice and see your face.
Oh my God, I love seeing faces. I just love seeing faces. And I really appreciate you guys chiming in with your questions and all that fun stuff. It really added to the conversation, and it poked some holes into the questions that I had for them originally. And so I appreciate that it kind of like went into a whole different direction. And that's why we have people. That's why we have faces. So thank you for joining. Do we have any more questions or any comments, anything? Yeah, Samson.
So, okay, this might be a weird question to ask. I know that there is a portion of OAC grants that are slated for Indigenous artists. With people who are Afro-Indigenous, but their Afro-Indigenous identity is not linked to Turtle Island, is that also considered? And does Obsidian make room for that? I don't know.
That is
like, for example, if you're Afro-Indigenous and you're like, for myself, I'm Afro-Indigenous, but it's through the Khoisan people of South Africa. It's through the Kalinago of the West Indies, but it's not through any groups, any Indigenous groups of Turtle Island.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess in Obsidian, it's the black identity part of it, and how that reflects in how you identify as that part of it, because that's the mandate. That's the, of course, indigeneity and blackness are also really linked in some cases and in a lot of cases, but that would be the angle that Obsidian would be looking at, is about the Black identity. So it
Okay.
doesn't matter what it's, as long as, I think OSC is you have to be an Ontario-based artist, right, guys? So you have to be living in Ontario.
Or it has to be happening in Ontario.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's super interesting, like if you're like, oh, I want to explore my indigeneity in this piece as a Black artist, you know, I want to explore that within the piece that I'm creating. All those intersections are really, you know, exciting and important, and things that we definitely would want to dive deep in more and more. And even, I think it's a new conversation, even talking about like indigeneity and Blackness. I think that's a really new and exciting conversation that we're just starting to like even scratch at. So I welcome you to dig and, you know, explore that.
Bless you.
Awesome.
Samson, I have a question to your question, just because I want to. You said that there's a portion of OAC recommended grants that are slated just for. Are you talking like a percentage or like a portion of them that must go to?
From my understanding is that when applying, there's always a question
About like priority groups.
Right, priority groups, and if you're Indigenous. So I don't know whether or not they consider Afro-Indigenous people who are not Indigenous to Turtle Island as still falling under that. So when applying, I wouldn't know whether or not I'm allowed to check that or not check that, because I'm not Indigenous to Turtle Island, but I'm Indigenous to other areas.
I would say to that specific question, whatever your comfort level is. Like I think, and if you wanted to, I think you could call the OAC and to figure out how they define that. They might actually have an expansion somewhere on the website of how they define. I mean, they should have a definition of how they define the priority groups.
I'm gonna link it in the chat.
Yeah, because they might actually specify connection to Turtle Island. Myekah says that she thinks they do. So that might answer your question. If they don't specify, I would say if that's like something that is in your identity and you feel comfortable, so, you know, like I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody what they, you know, what they are or what they aren't, right? So, but what do they have on their website here?
Yeah, and like a big part of the reason as to why I'm asking that, like, if anybody is familiar with my work knows that my stuff is very much geared around ancestors, and it's around it focuses heavily around ancestral anthropology, right? So this next piece that I'm working on is around the indigeneity and African indigeneity and like Afro-Caribbean indigeneity. And so trying to, so I just want to, I don't know how or where I fit now because of that in this thing, because there's always this argument of, are you actually Indigenous if you're not Indigenous to Turtle Island? And it's this nonstop thing, and it gives me stress.
If it helps, they define indigeneity for these purposes as First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. So specific to the location we are in, unfortunately. So if it was Taino or Carib or Arawak, or any of the ones from the West Indies, they might not see it in the same way. However, being an artist of color, you still do fall within a priority group. So if that does help on some levels.
And you still fall with applying for Obsidian. And I would also encourage you to also reach out to Native Earth and see how they approach it, and if it's something that might be a fit for, for Native Earth. Because I know they do work from across internationally, right? Like they look at Indigenous culture everywhere.
Yeah, that'd be a great conversation for Native Earth. I mean,
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We are just about over time. Anyone else have anything to add? Say yes, no, maybe so. All right. Honestly, it was lovely. Thank you again, Myekah and Luke, for being here, for answering all these questions. Thank you, Alex, Anika, Mumbi, Samson, for joining us. So appreciate it. And once again, this will be up on YouTube soon. So if there's something that you missed, you can go there. And our deadline is December 13th. I'm looking at you, Mumbi. It's December 13th. So
looking at me, I'm like, what is that?
I know, right? Yes, December 13th. So you got 2 weeks to get that in, and then we'll be reading them over the Christmas break or the holiday break. But yeah, once again, if you have any more questions, any comments, concerns, anything like that, you can feel free to email me. I can put that in the chat, or you can call, and my number is also on the OAC website. So there you go. Wonderful.
I know it's different now. Like, you know, no office numbers. Like,
I know you got your cell phone.
Like my whole cell phone number is just on the internet. But
Exposed.
Is okay.
I just wanted to say before we finished, congratulations, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank
And
Awesome,
I'm
Vanessa.
excited to see what you're going to bring to Obsidian.
Thank you. I so appreciate that. I'm excited to see too. Day by day. Thanks again, everyone. I appreciate you all. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your evenings.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.